All right. This video, whoops, this video here is talking about the parameter setup for the Matek H743 Slim. Okay. Some of you have this flight controller on your copters. It's the newest iteration at the time of recording this video. And so at this point, you should have the physical wiring done. Okay. And the physical assembly would also be good to have done at this point too. You should have that done as well. The little GPS mounts and stuff installed on your aircraft. But this last section here is regard to the parameters. Okay, so the parameters have to do with turning things on and off in the software so that the flight controller can actually communicate with the GPS and compass and telemetry radio. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to reference this page here from the Matek website. If you go to the Matek website, and then you go to products and find their flight controllers page, you'll find this H743 Slim V3, which is what you have on your aircraft. Okay, we're going to go down here and find the Autopilot mapping tab, all the way down here to the UART section. Okay, in this example, we have this flight controller has a lot of UARTs. We have USB. We have the ARCS TX7, 1, 2, 3, 8, 4, and 6. Okay, so this side here is all the physical things like the pins, ARCS and TX7, TX ARCS 1, just like we talked about in the wiring diagrams video. Okay, and I showed you where the wires go on each pad and stuff like that. Okay, so here it tells us this pad, TX ARCS 1, corresponds to, all the way across over here to the right, corresponds to serial 2 in Mission Planner when you're configuring things. The numbers don't always line up. That's why you have to check. So TX ARCS 1 is not serial 1, it's actually serial 2. So that's why we're double checking this chart. Okay, but we have here on our aircraft, let's see here, we have connected our telemetry radio to TX and ARCS 7. Okay, so we can go ahead and go look in here. TX ARCS 7, oh, there it is. Okay, and it's actually serial 1. So to turn this on for our flight controller to allow it to work, okay, we're going to go into Mission Planner. We'll go to the Config tab. Okay, we'll go to the full parameter list, and then we'll start searching for these. So if I type over here in the search bar SERIAL, and then I type 1, okay, serial 1 shows up with a protocol and options, baud, some other settings here. If I type serial 0, that's my USB port actually, so don't mess with that one. Leave that one alone, okay? Don't change serial 0, but the rest of them are pretty much configurable for different things. Okay, serial 0 protocol right now is set to 2. Okay, if we go and say, okay, serial 1, that's the right one for the right pads, okay? It's our telemetry radio. So telemetry radios should have the serial protocol of 2. It's already set up, but that Mavlink 2, number 2 there, is what we want to have here. Okay, so if you had to change that, say it was 5 or something, you had to change it to 2, you would then write params and make sure it's saved. Okay, that's great. Your baud rate should be at 57. It should auto-configure that after you reboot the copter if you need to, but it should do it by itself. So you can change it if you need to, but you shouldn't really have to do that. Okay, there's our telemetry radio configured now, so that's good. That's working. Okay, and we have that connection there from that side. On the other side, we're going to have our GPS as well as our compass, but our GPS is wired into RX3 and TX3. Okay. So we can go, oops, sorry here, let's go back to this. So RX3 and TX3 pads correspond actually to serial 4, not serial 3, serial 4 for TX and ARCS3 pads. So we'll want to make sure, yep, TX ARCS3, we'll want to go into serial 4 here in our our parameter list, okay? I want to make sure that's set to 5. Now mine's already set, but yours may be something different. You need to make sure you set that to 5 and then write parameters, okay? There we go. And that will allow the flight controller to find the GPS on the correct serial port. Okay, the last thing we want to do with serial ports is make sure any of the serial ports we're not using. Okay, so in this example here, you should have a receiver, okay, on TX ARCS 2, if I remember right. We have our GPS on TX ARCS 3, our telemetry on TX ARCS 7, then we have our USB. So besides those 4 things, these other serial ports down here, we're not using those for anything. So I would just go ahead and go through and turn those to -1, which is to turn it to none or turn it off. Okay, so if I were to go serial 7 or something like that, -1, just like that, you would save it like that, write params, and that helps us prevent any double serial ports, I guess you could say. There was a thing in Autopilot for a little while. I don't know if it's still there or not, but for a little while, I got tripped up by this. The serial ports go sequentially upon boot up. So the flight controller boots up and it says, okay, serial 1, what you got? Serial 2, what you got? Serial 3, what you got? Okay, and if one of those serial ports is set to GPS or set to 5, whoops, set to 5, okay, let's say serial 6 is set to 5, but there's no actual GPS plugged into that port, the autopilot would say, hey, says GPS, but no GPS. I guess we don't have a GPS on this aircraft. It would stop looking for a GPS. Even if the GPS was really connected to serial 8, it wouldn't find it. It wouldn't detect it. Unless you had the other serial ports turned off, and then it got to 8, and it was found like, oh, finally a GPS. Here it is. Okay, detected, right? So just make sure you turn the other ones off that you're not using. Again, don't mess with serial 0. Okay, and set the other ones as you should have for your configuration there. But if you're not using a serial port, then go ahead and set it to -1 and write those parameters. Okay. The last set thing in the parameters we have to do here is regarding our compass. We turned this off before because we didn't have a compass until this class. If you search for compass underscore use, okay, over here, where'd my mouse go? There we go, compass use, you get these 4 parameters showing up. Okay, we want to make sure we turn these back on. They're probably at 0 from when you've done the setup because we turned them off before. If they're turned off, you want to go ahead and turn them back on. Just change them to 1, enabled, and then write params. You'll do that for compass enable. You can do it for compass use, compass use 2, and compass use 3. Turn all those back on, hit write params, and you should be good to go to make sure your compass is actually detected and working. Okay. Once you've done all those parameter things, you want to reboot your whole copter, entirely reboot it, and then power it up with battery power. Go ahead and connect to it. Okay. You can connect it with your telemetry radio, and that will make sure your telemetry radio is working if you want to do that. That's the best way to check, make sure your telemetry radio is actually working, is to use that connection. Okay. And I talk about that in the NetID video assignment, which I'll link, which will be linked in the assignment itself. Okay. As far as the setup here, we can go over to this tab here and look for our compass. Okay. If we look at the compass tab, we see something here, we should be good as far as compasses go. Okay. You should see an external compass showing up. The data will all be different, but it should have one compass showing up in this line item. External is checked. That's an auto detect thing. You don't really need to manually configure that. It detects it on boot up as long as it's turned on. Okay. The last thing we'll check is our GPS. If you go to the data page, you go to your heads-up display here, you can see GPS. Mine says RTK. This is a simulated copter, but yours will either say no GPS, no fix, or like 3D fix. Okay. If you have a 3D fix, great. It's definitely working. If you have no fix, it probably means you're inside, maybe in an apartment or something where you can't get a good GPS fix, but at least it's detected the GPS, so no fix is also okay. But if it says no GPS, that means you configured something incorrectly or wired something incorrectly, and it's not seeing the GPS. You got to go fix something for it to work. If it says no GPS, you need to go back and fix it. All right, so those are the 3 things that we should be able to see once we've configured everything correctly. So if you go back here to the assignment, and that's what I'm looking for, basically to pass things off. Okay, to pass it off, you'll need to show it to me physically, but this video is to help you to actually get it figured out ahead of time so you can pass it off with me. Okay. Again, for the telemetry radios, I will have another video here linked below down in this section just to show you how to connect with a telemetry radio. Okay, but there's an assignment coming up that you'll need to correctly configure your telemetry radio, and the configuration video for that assignment also shows you just how to connect in general. All right, thanks.